welcome back to Tiny Nest. I'm Kiva.
And I'm Jake. This is another episode in our building series,
where we show what we did for the drainage of our sink so far.
I'm ready to attach and tighten down the drainage piece that came with the sink. And so it's just this simple piece with this rubber gasket, and then that goes underneath, and then this basically drops down, this threads into that hole, and there's some foam pre-affixed to this little rim here, which will basically press down right there. And it came with a little tool that fits in here to allow you to tighten down the little nut thing. I've got the sort of fittings that came with the IKEA sink loosely in place. There's the gasket and the flange on the bottom of the drain, and then this portion of it can actually, it's like a sleeve that can extend or retract, and I've got it all the way retracted because there's not much room over here. And like I said, it's just loosely in place, but it's just to get an idea of exactly where we need to be. And then down here there's like a compression nut, and this is an adapter that we bought to adapt to the actual piping that we're going to send down through the floor. So I'm just sort of going to hold this where I think it's going to end up, get a bit of a measurement, and then figure out where on the floor we need to go through. And then I will send a coat hanger down there through the floor right down to underneath the trailer, and make sure that there's going to be nothing to interfere with that path. Alright, so come down right here, right up against this like steel cross member. So obviously I'm going to need to come a bit further this way, but other than that we're good. Like we're nowhere near any wood joist that goes this way or the other way, so we only need to deal with this, and then we should be good to basically sneak it up right in beside that. Alright, based on where the coat hanger came down, I took another look at the piping that came with the sink and noticed that there's these little nub things here that are not needed for this installation. So I cut the one off on the other side so that I could push the pipe as far back as possible. And then I've remarked on the ground. Also got the shelf out of the way that was here, but I've made another mark down on the ground. It's a little bit dark there, but I've got it figured out, and I think it's going to work. Here's the pipe that's going to penetrate through the floor, and so I made sure to get a hole saw that is just a little bit bigger than the pipe so that it won't be too tight and also won't leave a unnecessarily huge hole. Alright, I'm down through the floor and the plywood, and I can see the plastic vapor barrier there. So I just need to cut that out of the way, get the insulation out of the way, and make a hole through the aluminum flashing underneath so that I can pass the pipe through. Alright, I think we're getting somewhere here. Sort of cut in a circular pattern with the good old Roxol knife to make a bit of a channel through the insulation there so that we're not fighting and compressing the insulation when we're pushing the pipe through. So we're all tightened up at the drain on the underside of the sink there, and then for now I've just got it hand tight at this connection, and then it's just shooting through the floor and all the extra length is still on it. So now I'm going to run underneath the house and figure out where I need to cut it. And then here's the stub poking down. You can see it's right up tight against this cross member, so that's good. And it's at a bit of an angle like this way towards the tongue of the trailer. just because trying to meet up with that hole, and this is a restriction of where it can be, but it connects pretty well with the plumbing that's under the cabinet there, because it's got a little bit of flex, especially in the white portion that came with the sink, and it doesn't look like it's putting too much stress on any of the fittings or anything. So I think it's going to work out. This is what we've got to go on the stub that's sticking out underneath the house. This smooth insert is where we will glue the pipe, and it'll actually fit in there. And then it's got a threaded portion on the other end, which will accept this. And this is basically just a barb. You can see it looks similar to the PEX fittings, because a flexible hose is going to fit over that, and then a hose clamp will go over, and these ridges will help seal that. Not that it needs to be sealed particularly strongly, it won't be under pressure, it's just the flow of drainage water. So I can actually get this pretty much together now. I'll give it one quick, just a little bit of a crank with a tool, but that's pretty close to where it needs to be. And that's all we need to do is get this on the pipe underneath the house. So here's the pipe underneath the house. We've got a lot extra, just a few inches off the ground really. And I want to get this in there, and probably I'll mark it such that it's maybe, I can get my finger in here. I don't want this wider portion to interfere with this and put even more pressure on the pipe to shove it that way. I'd like to have it come up and stop about there. And this will stick down a fair amount, but this threaded portion won't be glued in any way. So if we are worried about clearance with the ground, if we ever need to move the house, we should be able to just unthread this, and then we're only about that far, about to here below. Below the cross member. All right, we do need to glue these two pieces on, this one and the one on the other end of the pipe. And because the hole we've drilled through the floor is only big enough to accept this pipe, and this is obviously bigger, we're gonna have to keep the pipe through the hole and do the cement here, and then go under the house and cement the other piece, the other fitting, and basically do it that way. So I've got the stinky cement glue stuff here, and I'm just gonna make sure there's no dust or grime on here. And I'm going to try not to make a miserable mess of this, especially in our nice cabinet here. Alright. So, this is really nasty stuff. I'm gonna try to not get it all over the place. So I'm gonna put just a little bit on the inside of this, and a fair amount around here, and then quickly get it on there, give it a bit of a turn. That felt good. Felt like it went pretty much all the way in. There's not a ton of excess. From what I understand about this, gluing PVC or ABS or whatever, this stuff is a chemical that actually dissolves the plastic in a sense, and sort of you're basically melting it together without heat. I tend to not over splooge it all over the place, because the less of it there is, the more of the plastic will actually make contact, rather than there being a whole bunch of this chemical. It's more like the melted plastic makes contact with the melted plastic, if that makes any sense. We're back under the house, so I'm gonna get glue in here, glue around this guy, a bit of a turn. There we go. And that should be that. I've wrapped a bit of seal gasket around the pipe. Right now it's loose, but when it goes up to its full height to meet up with the piping under the sink, the seal gasket will basically press into this opening just so that there's no spot for insects or anything to get up under the flashing.
So this is what it looks like under the house in its final position.
So we just pulled the pipe up and tightened this nut down, and it's actually pretty solid because it's at a bit of an angle through the hole, so it's kind of like wedged and holding tight against the rim, and up there it's tightened down to the drain, so it's pretty good. We might put a block or something to strap to so that it's actually held, but for now it's probably fine to use. With the sink and drain functional, we've done just a couple quick touch-up things, like added a block of wood that we could put a pipe strap to for this so that there's never any excess stress on the actual drainage portion. And likewise, it's probably too dark under here, but added a strap down here for this pipe, and also caulked where it penetrates through the floor, and also put this piece of trim here that actually acted as the spacer to put the strap on there. We also replaced the shelf that's part of the cabinet, and now we can put the door back on that side, which has the hole pre-cut to accept the duct that's going to pass through that hole. It's going to come through that hole, through the cabinet door, and we're also going to fix the cabinet door so it's permanently held closed. You won't be able to open it and hit that fender there. And yeah, so that ducting system is something we can put through here now. This pipe that penetrates through the bathroom cabinet is part of an air exchanging ducting system that's going to pick up air from the toilet box and eventually expel it out of the house. But we still need to do a lot of work on that, and a full explanation will be in a future video. So that's it for the drain. There's the little overflow drain that goes in, and it's all kind of built in. And then there's no lever or thing to pull to plug the drain. There's just this little plug piece that will sit like that, and then you basically just push it down to plug it, and it pops back up and sits like that. So it's actually really simple and convenient. I know sometimes those mechanisms come apart and there can be kind of a pain, so we won't have that problem. And then the other element that came with the sink is these little hooks on the side that just literally just sit like that, and they could be for towels, like hand towels, or I'm sure we'll find a good use for those. All right, as promised, I've got a bit of an update and explanation about the straight pipe here. And I realized as I was trying to figure out what I was going to say about this, that I have a whole long rambling story about what happened underneath the house, and also just sort of how venting and the air seals and everything in drainage work in general. So I decided I'd just make a separate sort of add-on video to this, to just ramble on and get into all those details that you can watch if you want to hear more. But basically, the idea with the straight pipe was to just get the drainage underneath the house and then deal with it under there. And that would go for the kitchen sink and the shower as well. But in practice, that didn't really work out that well. So what we've done for now is basically just cut out a section of the rigid vertical piping underneath the cabinet here, and replaced it with some of that flexible tubing that we've been making good use of to create a makeshift S-trap, so that there is an air seal by the fact that there's liquid that will, stay in the low part of the droop here. Now, I know that this type of air seal is not ideal compared to a P-trap, and I'll get into that in the little add-on video, but it did actually do its job. At one point, we were having an issue with nasty smells wafting up out of the drain under certain circumstances,
which prompted us to come up with some kind of solution. And after installing this, it's basically performed very well. Like, it's done its job. It is maintaining an air seal. There's no smells coming up. And honestly, we probably, after experiencing the performance of this, we could probably leave it indefinitely, and it would be fine. But something that I am interested in trying, and I came across long ago when we were doing preliminary research about all the systems of the house as we planned, this project, was a one-way membrane-based valve, which is often marketed towards RVs and meant for tight spaces, both of which are applicable in this situation. So I think I would eventually like to upgrade this essentially by replacing this makeshift S-trap with one of those membrane valves. And it's also an opportunity to sort of try something new and then also let you guys know how that worked, because this is a bit of an experiment, and like I said, it's actually gone, the results are pretty good. But I'd also like to experiment with that other type of air seal valve thing, because I think it would be a bit better in this situation. So there you have it. If you want to hear me ramble even more about this, I've got an extra add-on video. We'll put a card that'll pop up that you can click on, and also a link in the description.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like what we're doing here, and turn on email notifications so you never miss a video. You can also find extra resources in the description below.
We spend countless hours making these videos for YouTube. So if you appreciate our work, take 3 minutes to watch the video in the top left tile to learn some ways that you can support us for free.
We'd really appreciate it.